My name is Sam. Camping with my older brother was supposed to be fun. He always told me that nothing bad ever happens in the woods unless you're stupid. That night, I learned he was wrong. We set up camp deep in Ashwood Forest, a place my brother, Luke, had been too many times before. He knew the trails, the best fishing spots, and even claimed he could navigate without a map. That should have been my first warning. The second warning came when we found the cabin. It was old, barely standing, hidden between twisted trees like it had been swallowed by the forest itself. The roof had caved in, the door was missing, and inside, there was only a rotting wooden chair facing the corner. Luke grinned. Creepy, right? I didn't like it. Something about the chair, the way it was perfectly positioned, facing the wall, like someone had been forced to sit there for a long time, watching nothing. That night, by the fire, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching. I didn't say anything. Maybe it was just the isolation getting to me. But, around midnight, Luke nudged me. "Did you hear that?" We listened. At first it was just the wind. Then, footsteps, soft, slow, circling our tent. Luke grabbed his flashlight and unzipped the tent. Probably just a deer. But when he shined the light outside, the footsteps stopped. No movement. Sound. Just empty woods. Then, he aimed the flashlight at the trees. And that's when we saw him. A man, tall, thin, standing between the trees. Completely still. His face was wrong. Not deformed. Not injured, just wrong. Like it didn't belong on his body. Like it had been put there by something else. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. Luke whispered, "Get in the car. Now." I didn't ask questions. We moved fast, packing nothing, running through the darkness until we reached the car. But as I slammed the door shut and locked it, I saw him again. Closer, standing at the edge of the tree line, watching, mouth still open. Luke started the engine. The headlights flickered on, cutting through the night, and for the first time, we saw his eyes. They weren't human, not angry, not scared, just empty. And then, he smiled. A wide, unnatural smile that stretched too far, pulling his skin like it was barely attached. I screamed. Luke floored the gas, and as we sped off, I looked back one last time. The man was gone. Only the old cabin remained, hidden between the trees, and in the window, the wooden chair was no longer empty. Something was sitting in it, and it was watching us leave. My name is Jake. When you camp near a lake, the worst thing you expect is maybe a few mosquitoes or a cold night. What you don't expect is something watching you from beneath the water. It started our second night at Black Hollow Lake. We had set up our tents close to the shore, where the moonlight made the water shimmer like black glass. The lake was completely still, not even a ripple. Too still. Liam was the first to notice. Is it just me? Or is something moving down there? We turned to look. At first, I thought it was a fish, a shadow, barely visible under the surface. But then it moved, too smoothly, not like something swimming, more like something sliding. Ethan laughed it off. "Dude, it's just a fish." But it wasn't, because when we looked back at the water, the shadow had stopped, right in front of us, motionless, as if it was waiting. Ava shivered. "Let's just go to sleep." We tried, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound, a slow, wet dripping. At first I thought it was rain, but when I peeked out of the tent, my heart nearly stopped. There were wet footprints leading from the lake, straight to our tents, and worse, they stopped right outside mine. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear anyone move. But somehow, something had come up from the lake and stood right outside my tent. I clenched my fists, listening, but there was only silence. Then, the whisper, a gurgling, choked whisper, like someone drowning. "Come back." I bolted upright, fumbling for my flashlight, but when I turned it on, there was nothing. No footprints, no shadow, just the still, black lake. The next morning, we left as fast as we could, but as we drove away, I glanced at the lake one last time, and there, in the water, just beneath the surface, two pale hands, floating, waiting. My name is Ethan. Camping was supposed to be cheap, easy, and fun. That's what we thought when we planned a weekend trip to Ravens Creek, a secluded camping spot deep in the woods. No phone service, no noise, just nature. It sounded perfect, but we weren't alone. The first night was normal, laughing around the fire, telling ghost stories, roasting marshmallows. It wasn't until we went to sleep that things got strange. At around 3 a.m., I woke up needing to pee. Annoyed, I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could, stepping into the freezing night air. The fire had died down to a few glowing embers, casting faint red light over our campsite. That's when I saw it. Another tent. It was red, small, and sat about 20 feet away from ours. That made no sense. There had been no other tents when we arrived. We would have noticed if someone set up camp that close. But the worst part, the zipper was open. Not all the way, just a few inches. Just enough for someone inside to peek out. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Maybe someone arrived late. Maybe they set up camp while we were asleep. I turned back to wake up Liam, but then the zipper moved. Not fast, not like someone exiting the tent. Just a slow, gentle pull. Closing it, I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I waited, heart pounding, but nothing else happened. I rushed back into my tent, zipped it up as fast as I could, and tried to convince myself I imagined it. But in the morning, when the sun rose, I crawled out of my tent, and my blood went cold. The red tent was gone. No footprints, no signs of a campfire, no disturbed grass, just empty space. I turned to the others. Did you guys see anyone else here last night? Ava shook her head. No one's here but us. I didn't tell them what I saw. I didn't want to sound crazy. But when we packed up to leave, I noticed something. A small red fabric scrap stuck on a tree branch, fluttering in the wind. I grabbed it, and as soon as my fingers touched the material, I felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to look behind me. I turned, and deep in the woods, barely visible between the trees, a red tent dot unzipped, and this time, something inside was staring back. My name is Oliver. I've been camping since I was a kid. The woods have always felt like a second home to me. Predictable, safe. That changed last summer. That was when I learned that some forests whisper back. My friends and I set up camp in Blackwood Forest, a place known for its dense trees and eerie silence. The name should have been a warning, but we laughed it off. It was just another weekend trip, just another night in the wilderness. At around midnight, while we sat around the fire, I heard it, a voice, a whispered soft, like a breath against my ear. Don't look. I spun around, but there was no one there, just the thick forest pressing in on us. The others were too busy laughing at Ethan's dumb jokes to notice. I tried to brush it off, but minutes later, another whisper came. They're watching. This time, I jumped to my feet, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. Still, nothing. But when I turned back to my friends, I saw it just for a split second. A figure, standing behind Ava. Not close, not threatening, just standing, motionless, almost blending into the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. I wanted to say something, to warn them. But then I noticed something strange. The trees, they had shifted. The clearing we had set up camp in was smaller. Now, the trees were closer, closing in. I took a deep breath. Guys, I think we need to leave. Liam rolled his eyes. Dude, relax. "You're just paranoid." But I wasn't. I could feel it now, something watching, something waiting. The forest was breathing around us, shifting, adjusting, and then the whispers turned into laughter. Not ours, not human. It was everywhere, echoing between the trees, circling us. Low, distorted, like voices played in reverse. That's when the fire went out. Pitch darkness swallowed us. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking. When I turned it on, my stomach dropped. The trees had moved again. The open sky was gone. We were trapped. The trunks pressed in like a rib cage, suffocating us. And then I saw them. Eyes, dozens of them peering from between the trees, watching, waiting. We ran. Branches scratched my arms. Roots tripped my feet, but I didn't stop. I could still hear them, those voices, whispering, laughing, calling my name. It felt like hours before we finally broke free from the forest. Stumbling onto the empty dirt road where our car was parked, we didn't look back. We just drove. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I checked the forest's history online. There was no Blackwood Forest, no record of it ever existing. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear the whispers, telling me to come back. My name is Daniel. It was supposed to be a fun weekend with my friends, just 4 of us, deep in the woods, away from the noise of the city. We set up our tents near a quiet lake, lit a fire, and laughed as the night fell. The air was crisp. The trees swayed gently, and everything felt peaceful. Until we saw him. At first, we thought he was just another camper. A man, sitting alone by his fire, just a few hundred meters away. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting, staring at the flames. He never moved, never cooked anything, never adjusted the fire, just sat there. It was Liam who first noticed something strange. "Guys, has he even blinked?" We laughed it off, but when we looked back at him, Liam was right. The man hadn't moved an inch since we first saw him. No shifting, no stretching, not even a single twitch. "He's probably just deep in thought," Ava suggested, but something about him made my stomach churn. Hours passed, and we tried to ignore him, playing card games, telling stories, pretending he wasn't there. But the moment my eyes wandered back to his fire, my heart nearly stopped. He was gone, no movement, no sound, just an empty log and a dying fire. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Where did he go? We scanned the woods with our flashlights. Nothing. No footsteps in the dirt, no sound of rustling leaves, just the distant hooting of an owl. Then Ethan whispered, "Look at our tents." We turned. The man was standing next to them. He wasn't looking at us. He wasn't even facing the tents. Just standing, stiff as a corpse, his back straight, his head slightly tilted, like he was listening. Ava screamed, and Liam grabbed a rock, ready to throw it. But before he could, the man did something that still haunts me. He tilted his head, further back, and further, and further, until his face was completely upside down. His neck cracked, his mouth stretched open too wide, too unnatural. Then he ran, but not like a person, not with normal steps. He moved like a flickering image, vanishing and reappearing between the trees, his body twisting and bending in ways that no human should be able to. We grabbed whatever we could and bolted to the car, leaving our tents, our gear, everything behind. We never went back to get them. A week later, a news article popped up. Missing campers found in the woods. Tents intact. No signs of struggle. Only one thing left behind. Charred remains of an old campfire, still burning. I swear, if I ever see another camper sitting alone in the woods, staring at a fire, I won't wait. I'll run, because next time, I might not be fast enough.